Hello, I'm Arcturus and welcome to Wars Going On. I'm joined today by Sebastian Keynes and we are here on the Forerunner server. As ever, this is a community-based podcast, so if you want to jump into the comments and let us know what you want us to talk about, leave us a link below, a like below, or a comment below. Do remember to subscribe because it really does help the channel. And as we've moved across, we really need to get people back so people can start seeing this again.
Yep. Hello again, everybody. All right, so let's just go ahead and get started here, Arturos, because we do have a guest coming on soon. So let's start going over the changes. So one of the significant changes I think have come up with two heroes specifically, and then the boss, Semra, the developers are still toying around with. So, but first thing is first. So we've been asking for another debuffer. They finally decided I'm going to give you another one, and they picked an epic that we all have in our accounts.
Yeah, so Nisyande, she's another star piece. So this is the second star piece healer who has been buffed in some way. So she's now obviously giving out a cleanse on her ultimate, and I haven't had a chance to test it yet, but the way it reads is it's just on the initial healing wave that she does at the start of her thing. I don't believe it's the healing balls that are going to add cleanses to that for that 25-second duration. That is going to limit her use somewhat, but she'll be a useful second cleanser if you're struggling at all. So it might help in something like Semra 1, so you can save your Dan for Semra 2.
Yep. So nice little change. They, they haven't launched any 15x banners for her yet. I didn't see anything coming up in that regard, but it's just a nice addition, or at least an epic. Another epic is made usable again. And what I like about this too is that Nasande was a dark horse for the Immortal Codex, the Titan. Now she's going to be even a lot better to use there as well.
Yeah, and it's going to make the Star Pisser later stages easier as well, because those stages have a poison inflicted, a webbing and a poison inflicted by the boss. So if you're now able to cleanse those by using her as the healer, then you'll be able to take her down even faster.
Okay, and then regarding so now the whole Lucius and how Lucius is working interaction with Semra now has a little bit more logic to it. And so we were given a little bit of a preview because Heretic told you he found out that the Aegis mode was not stacking anymore, and they finally announced it in this version of the patch notes. So let's talk about that, and then let's talk about how now Lucius becomes a little bit more effective to that. So just overall, the patch said now the Aegis mode can be dispelled, but now when Samra takes his turn, all those buffs you remove are not coming back again.
Yeah, and that does make it, if you have Lucius, it becomes an awful lot easier to deal with those shield stages now, because even though his ultimate is quite a long duration, you should never really have more than 2 stacks of his Aegis up, because your ult will be cycling on that sort of frequency. So your ult, it will cleanse all of his buffs, it will reset him to 0, and the next time, rather than going back to 3 or more, then he will just go to one stack.
Yep. And so one of the video that I made, I said pretty much I said Lucius is usable again, and you can actually now contend with this mode a lot easier. And so some of the complaints were, okay, now this hero seems too broken. It makes this more lovable. And so if you can show the damnation stack on Lucius and just show that gold border on, because I have a suspicion that if Apocalypse 3 comes, they may do something where the H's mode could not be dispelled. So they're kind of giving us something here for the early modes, but then the harder ones, I think that's where Lucius maybe become a little bit less efficient.
Yeah, so if you're familiar with the sort of buffs that you see on your hero, so if you're during the if you're playing Aegis mode, sorry, if you're playing Semra, and you click on one of your units, you'll see things for like any buffs that are applied to them. For example, any speed buffs, so the 2 swords. If you've got any attack buffs, that'll be a single sword. And last week we started seeing a blue square around his damnation stacks. What happened this week in the patch when it was formally released, it became a gold square. And this is also seen on Ingrid's skill set as well, on her flares and stack charges. But what this means is that you've now got this gold bar, and we were just speculating before the call started whether this is going to be means that it can't be dispelled by an enemy because of what it is. So yeah, I think you're probably right that this is a hint of something stronger coming down the line that is going to be really, really tough.
I mean, this is experience from me playing other gacha games or games similar to this where there are buffs and debuffs. And usually when they have some type of border on them, it just means you cannot get rid of them or they're permanent or, something is distinct from what a similar debuff or debuff would be in that particular hero. I think that this is just getting us ready for that prospect. So I would say, okay, maybe he may be broken for 1 and 2, but let's just wait. He might not be so broken for 3.
Yeah, three at the moment seems a hell of a long way off from my account, but I know as soon as you get someone like Carnelian in, the way the game plays is a lot different. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
And this that they made, which I compliment them on, and that they didn't put this on global because it was significant. I mean, you could tell it was slowing things down. They overhauled the camp. And I even think the rewards look a little bit better, and the whole interaction between it is now simplified.
Yeah,
So
it's
I'm just gonna
definitely.
go ahead and tell them exactly how things changed, and then I'll just the only thing that I'll say is that the rewards are looking a little bit better on this now too.
So we've always had the mine, but the rewards have changed somewhat. Previously, we used to get these various degrees of ores that we used to send to develop the camp and send stuff out for development. Now they've removed the ores, but in place they're giving us auto run auto run tickets and arena permits, which are quite useful as people are having to do more combat in arena to try and push the apex. And also they've started handing out more insignias. Obviously, at the end game, insignias aren't really anything you worry about, especially with the changes they've made to Extreme 1 and Extreme 2 recently in terms of how they're handing out the tokens there. But overall, I think it's not bad. I feel that the gems are slightly down on where they were, but that's probably just a sort of a false bias, just based on how I feel that things have changed. But overall, this zooming in and out is much slicker. The harbour is been simplified from having 4 destinations; it's now only 3, and the food sources are now simplified to 6 main food sources with 3 rare ones, and we'll come back to the rare ones in a minute. But so now, for example, if I click on one of these fish and I say, "Oh, I want to know more about this dish," it will probably okay, sorry, bad example. But if so I come to the trading hall, which has also changed significantly. Rather than having a number of tickets that were required, we've now got all of these orders. We have a set number a week, so many days to complete them all. I'm probably not going to complete them all because I just don't have enough tickets to do everything. But for example, if I say, "Oh, I need this beef," and I click on Harbour, it will zoom me out and it will take me to the right one, which is, I think, is a little interaction there between the 2 modes. So fair play to the devs on that. The camp is still there. It's hiding. There's Lily waving at us. They've buffed the amount of experience you get from the experience bottles, experience meals. They were really piddly amounts before. Now it's the same as doing, I think it is about the same as doing 1 run of stage 9. The experience is the same size sorry, the energy is the same size as a small energy bottle, and the there's you can now earn day tickets of experience and gold boosts. They are really really nice things to have in your account. So they're expensive, but just the ability to do those absolutely free without having to spend any in-game currency, any like gold or gems, just getting them free, I think is a really nice feature. And then we have the mystery reward. Now, I don't know anyone who's got a mystery reward yet. I am keeping an eye out on chat to see if anyone's said they've pulled one, but I think these items are pretty rare. So we'll see in a month or so what people are saying about it.
Yeah, and the only other the troll really changed as well because now they're putting fragments for divine crystals and ancient crystals in there, so that's a little bit of an improvement. And I think that they took to heart the recommendations or the suggestions that were being made. People found the farmland really annoying and the lumber mill really annoying, so that was my input, is just get rid of those two. There's no need to make it this cumbersome. So, and now that they took those out, the game interface just seems a lot smoother now. There isn't as many hangups anymore.
No, the overall gameplay experience is drastically improved in this last patch. They did say that they were working on improving the performance of the game, and I'd say that's absolutely true. I do have a little bit of a soft spot for Navras, and this is now the second time he's been kicked out of the camp. I mean, he used to lurk around up here at the back saying creepy things, and then he was over here, and he was a farmer, and now he's been kicked out again. I think they should just like to make him like have him standing on this rock up here, just staring over the camp, looking grumpily at them, throwing his minions up in the air. Just some
Yeah,
acknowledgement of that they've done him now. And if anyone wants the GIF of Estrid chopping wood, just drop by the Dragon Slayers community, give me a shout, and I'll pin it so that people can download it and use it wherever they want.
yeah, long live that GIF, man. Oh, and then the other thing that because of the arena changes that are coming up, is that they said that the daily gift that we get in the shop every day, they're going to remove the gold and they're going to add arena tickets or arena permits there. So that's the only other change that you can look forward to seeing when this stuff comes into global. And then talking about global, so there was a patch that's supposed to roll out this past week for global, which was just a culmination of everything we've seen in Forerunners for the last month or two. But apparently, Apple is holding things up.
Yeah, that's what I understand. Now, I don't have a lot of understanding about what the actual issue is, but I believe that from hearsay, there's been some talk about implementations of do not track legislation in Europe, and that's one of the reasons that it's gone in for additional checking and it's taking longer to process. But this, as I say, this is hearsay. I'm sure our guest will have better links into the developers and will be able to provide us some more insight. But yeah, it's impacting players. People are getting pretty annoyed. I know that a lot of people are hoping to pull for this new hero, Numera, who's just arrived in game. She looks really interesting if you haven't heard about her, in that she's got a lot of poison synergy. So her in a team with Dahlia could be really effective because you've got an opportunity to stack up lots of poison there. So yeah, people in global are going to have to wait a little bit long for that. And obviously they missed out on the Lizard Day draw, and I hope that the devs can find a way to bring that in at a later date for the global players.
It was nice, just nice to see Forerunners get something, new that global is not seeing at the same time. I'll say that just selfishly. But it was a good banner, the Trust banner, because he had Salazar in it. Now we have an event going on here relating the two of them. We are going to be able to get, or I already got Trust exclusive, so at least we can start working on that. And then we have some other event that they threw at us here. So, I think that eventually it'll come to global. It's just going to be a little bit delayed. But in global right now, we have an Anai LON banner. So it's kind of similar to the one that we have here. and those are just good as heroes as Numeria is going to be. So it's just she's just adding something distinct to the pool. So don't fret too much. Let the whole legalese work out, and eventually the global patch would come into play when it comes into play.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be a learning point for Moonton, that they need to get their updates into Apple earlier, just to make sure that these things don't don't happen again. And especially as these are just cumulative patches of everything that's already been released on Forerunners, there shouldn't be any issues in them compiling them early and getting them out to Apple nice in good time so that things can be rolled out.
Okay, so now we'll bring in our special guest for today, who is going to be discussing along with us the primary topic of today's podcast, which is development quality control.
And we are joined by Fastidious, who everyone must recognize by this point.
How are you doing, guys? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us today.
Welcome to WoRs Going
Yeah.
On. So we were just discussing the patch notes, sorry, the lack of patch, more like, on Global. Do you have any insights from your dev contacts?
I can tell you the last thing I heard. This was on the 14th, so 3 days ago. At this point, it was over 48 hours after the patch was supposed to be live already. And I said, any update at all on the update? And they said, not yet. About to cry emoji. Still waiting for the response for the iOS. So I think at this point, like, there's no way they would do it over the weekend anyway. I think they'll just do a full week delay. If we want to put on our tinfoil caps, whether it's a legitimate Apple delay or not, if you had to cover up a delay, wouldn't you blame it on Apple?
I mean, if that's what holding, yeah, I would actually blame it on Apple.
But I'm saying even if it wasn't on Apple, wouldn't you blame it on, like, isn't that the, like, it's like you say the email got lost or something, right? I'm trying to think back to my college days.
Yeah.
Well, but is there any
The
truth
attachment
to
didn't attach, that kind of thing.
is there any truth to the fact that due to the recent laws that were enacted in the EU, that that's possibly what's holding it up on Apple's end, or is this just something the Moonton tried to sneak into the patch and Apple caught it and said, "Hey, you guys can't do this"?
All right, so most likely there is an issue with Apple. I don't think it's like 90%. Maybe it's like 40%, and it's like the plurality of chance, right?
Yeah.
I would think my best guess in my conspiratorial gut is they realized on their own end, Moonton, there was a mistake. So they had to quick withdraw the original patch and submit a new one, which then, from what I understand, can take 1, 2, 3 weeks to get approved. And they tried
Yes.
to get it quickly approved in time, hoping they could cover their butt, which isn't the end of the world. It's not such a bad thing. But tried to say, hey, guys, can we just get this one through? But Apple's like, no, you're back to square one. You're here on the queue. We'll get to it when we get to it. That'd be my biggest guess. And then there's the nefarious thing. Did they try to do something that is like not good and Apple caught it and they have to fix it? Which I think is the least likely.
Well, one of the things that I had the content creator contact that had, send her a message, and I said, "We okay to go do Numeria videos or any of the new heroes?" And right away, he got back to me and she said, "No, not yet. Don't touch it. We're still working on stuff in the background." I was like, "Okay, I'm not going to do anything." And then I saw you and somebody else release a Numeria video, and they said, "No, they were not supposed to. You still hold on, and we'll let you know when you can do it." So, yeah. So I thought definitely something going in the background, and then when that's resolved, and we get an indication that we can start making a video on Numeria, then I thought that's when the update's going to roll out.
I'll give you a juicy tidbit for the podcast. Half the time I listen to them when they tell me not to post stuff. But the other half of the time, if I'm being honest, other people are doing it anyway. So how's
Yeah.
that fair? So it's like if I was you, especially if I was you, Sebastian, if I already posted, if Dan I mean, just freaking come on, that's not fair. There's a couple people that always are going to do it, and I'm not even faulting them. In the past, it's even been me. But it's just like, especially, some of us in different time zones, and I mean, for me, I live in Utah. Like my difference with B, our contact, our main. I have two contacts, but our main contact, it's 14 or 15 hours. I mean, come on, right?
Yeah, it's about 15, 16 for me if I did the math correctly. So
Yeah.
it, I understand. I mean, now we're talking about Fastidious, almost, however many, 20,000 now subscribers that you have.
Yeah.
Not
I'm
yet.
still working. Well, I'm still working to 1,000. So I don't want to upset them in any way, shape, or form. There's still other stuff that we can do, but I just found it at that time. I found it interesting that they said, no, you're still under embargo, even though the update was supposed to quote unquote roll out.
Yeah.
So I thought, once I heard that the update was not coming, then I said, okay, this is why I was given the warning. Something was being worked up in the background that held them up.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting for sure. The question is how this is going to affect future banners, right? Everything's going to be offset at least a week. They tried to guess if you guys have kept up with Destin's banner leaks, and then I followed up with my breakdown. Like we knew there was an Elwyn banner coming, but it was supposed to be a new
Mhm.
banner with Magnus and different epics. For
Yes.
anyone that's paid attention, this is an identical banner to the original January 19th, I believe, was the banner for Elwyn and I. They did a rerun in like May or something, like a
Yeah.
Sunday only Divines. So maybe that's their solution. I'm quite interested to see what it is. People give me a hard time. They say like I whine or I'm too hard on Moonton and stuff. But I think I'd love to point out. I think I equally talk about when they do something well. So if we want to talk about something positive, I could see them taking this opportunity. Perhaps they put a couple more things into the patch, right? Like what if Nassan dies in this patch because of the delays? That'd be
Yeah.
pretty cool. I don't know if that will happen, but if Nasane or Lucius, those fixes maybe made it in, that would be I think a net win actually. A 1 week delay, but then we get those probably about 4 or 5 weeks early. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. Now, on that topic, that brings us nicely onto what we were talking about for the topic of today, and that is the way that Moonton have been sort of changing kits almost on the fly, and then the impact that's had to the player base and what that means for us. So talking about for Lucius on the test server, you had an example of him where he uh, operated in one way and he was doing a certain number of dispels, and then when he was released onto the global, he did 5 dispels over 5 hits, and then shortly after release, he was changed to doing a single dispel, but up to 5 debuffs, and that
Yes.
that makes it difficult for players to sort of gauge if someone's any good.
Arcturus,
And
I couldn't
then,
hear the question. I'm sorry.
sorry,
You
it was just
froze for a sec.
it was what the impact of how the skills are changing post pre-release and then post-release. So you're getting test server's getting one view, then it's releasing live. So Lucius's skill is let me just bring up his skill set. He's getting a lot of screen time
So,
today.
so remember that so this is why sometimes I don't take everything that Destin releases too hard too much, because it changes when it sometimes gets into the test server or when it comes into global. And so I always kind of have an open mind about that. It's like, this may not be what we see when they release it in game. And it has happened, right? It has happened with Lucius, it has happened with Ingrid. And so one of the things right now is that the way that I remember it is Lucius had a specific kit that was released by the leakers. When we had him in the test server, he was doing 4 charges on his bow, and then he would dispel a debuff. Spell, but it while for them to come off, right?
Yeah.
And so when you and I were talking originally about his kit, and so I was essentially was, you have to make sure that his rage comes back around quickly enough, which it does. His passive allows him to do that, so he's ready on the next mode. And then they changed him, where now he did it on the first basic attack. All five came out, and it was a little bit harder to control, because if you gave him too much speed and he went into his demonic mode, he wasn't ready. You wouldn't be able to go in the next round.
Yeah.
So then it was they didn't necessarily go after Lucius, but they started going after Samra's H's mode. And one of the things that we had asked was, is this in fact right? Is he supposed to be gaining all those stacks that we were removing back? And based on the language, we said it makes sense because the way that it's written in the description, it says, yes, he's going to come in with more stacks the next turn he comes around. But now they finally conceded and they said, no, okay. Every time that he removes it, they're not going to come back. So they didn't. Now they have settled into, now we're not going to change Lucius anymore. Now we're going to change the mechanic on the boss. And so this is the whole thing about the quality control. What is it that you want to really do? They should have given us a chance, at least in Forerunners, to even toy more with that interaction. But you know what was happening here, Arturos and Fasti, is that once we had settled into this version of Lucius, some of the top Forerunner people said he doesn't do what we need him to do, so we're just going to go back to the comp that was working, and solution was being cast aside, and they said, okay, now we have to change the mechanic of the boss to bring him back into the fold.
Yeah, I mean, a couple things. When it originally came to global, it was the original version, which I believe was he has a 25% chance to dispel a buff up to 4 times. I think that's how it came, and they changed that within a week or two. I
Right.
don't think I actually some people have commented on the video I put most recent video I posted on Lucius saying a way they could make him a little less overpowered, go back to that skill, but make them permanent buff removals. So you actually aren't guaranteed, at least with this, with the suboptimal build, you certainly would not be guaranteed to dispel the maximum 4. Now they obviously went to 5 on the first single hit, so it is an all but a guarantee because you'll never get higher than 5 with a permanent strip.
Yeah,
I've reread Semra's skills many times. I do not think it reads that Semra obviously is going to add the old ones and add a new one. It says he adds more hardening stacks, meaning from wherever he was, he's going to add more hardening stacks. So if he's back to 0, he should start adding more at 1. I think it's no coincidence that the vast majority of players were like, who thought it was going to work like this? Also, a lot of people, a good friend of mine, Pink Jesus, I'll give him a shout out, included, one of my mods, helped me a lot with the website, have contended this was so obvious the whole time if you checked it on test server. I did very limited testing. I didn't notice it. I totally believe that it was there. So I think there probably is a fault of the content creators, very much myself included as well. So I think we should own that. But that being said, what I want to push back on is in a live service game like this, where there's so much like constant up to date the news kind of stuff you have to be on top of, and especially if you're not one of the bigger accounts in our small little world, being expedient is the best way to grow and get eyeballs, right? So that's why I would say like get on the Numera right away. You know, ask for forgiveness, not permission, kind of thing. Once you see the cat's already out of the bag. But that also goes for stuff like this. So we're constantly getting new banners, and I'm doing a should you summon, and people are doing a summon or save or this and this. We're constantly getting new patches, new developments come. Zucania Necrocon found out that an assault's broken or this, that, and the other, right? There's like something every day. And then we have to test 4 new guys on the test server and make sure we test them in the appropriate way. When how could we really know, because they're brand new and we can theory craft, but until we've really explored them for a long amount of time, I really think it would behoove Moonton to add these guys, send out not just a hey Sebastian, this is basically what they do, we just added Numera or we just added Lucius, want to go check him out, and then he comes out that weekend. How about give us, we're curious how Lucius would perform in this. Can you test this and this and way? And Sebastian, if you do that, we'll give you this W gold, or we'll give you something like some diamonds. Like, give us some direction as opposed to, what's up, Dan Eilman? Numera's there. Go make a video. And he made some great videos, but then viewers are like, but you didn't test it the right way. So then he has to make another video, which is great. I mean, it's content, but wouldn't it have been better if the devs were like, hey, Dan, this is a nice way we think Numera work. Do you test that in these 3 or 4 ways and any other ideas you have? And then it's like, boom, right off the bat, you have direction. I mean, we're always finding our bearings. Sorry if I'm rambling a bit here, but I just think that's such an easy fix with Lucius. And here I am on the podcast. I can't help but think with 2 of, like, to me, the Forerunner guys. We have a Forerunner server that is in no way used. Yeah. It's a disgrace, in my opinion. Why not release Lucius 2 months before on Forerunner? You know? And it's freaking Forerunner. Why not make it a 30x? So most people are gonna like, who cares? I just don't get it. Like, let him be for ran, you know?
Yeah.
It would solve so many of these problems. And like, did I mess up? Did War Guides mess up? Did a bunch of us mess up? You, Sebastian, too. I don't know if you made the video. Should have we known to go into Guild Boss 2, see that immediately, and for posterity, get it in a video and share with everyone before that banner? Absolutely. But did they make it easy on us? Absolutely not.
No,
You
it
gotta
was very
keep in
difficult,
mind
but
that when
because
he was released.
go ahead, Sebastian.
Okay, sorry. So I was just going to say, Festi, is so this has always been the contention of being content creator with access to the test server, and then them having their own people testing stuff, right? Is how much responsibility is, in fact, the content creators to find out the bugs. So when I went in there, and then I got an understanding of how exactly his kit was working. When I made my video, I said, okay, this is probably how you're going to want to time things, because he only has a % chance to remove it, but you can see the stacks coming off. So now you can kind of contend with that and say, when am I going to use my ultimates? Or if I'm struggling trying to get out of this, you may want to activate them early or wait a little bit. But at least he gave you that opportunity. But here was what's happening is that things were changing on the fly. Now, here's what's happening, though. New content is coming in. New heroes are coming in. So now our attention is all on that, and now it's not on Lucius. The Lucius banner already went away. People already have him. So it wasn't until now that we saw, at least in Forerunners, we saw this change with the HS mode that I then decided I'm going to do one more video on Lucius to say, okay, now the logic between these two works much, much better. He should come back into the fold when this releases into global. That's where I left it. Okay. So now he was, to me, he was working as well as he was when I had him in the test server. That's exactly what. But like you mentioned, Fasti, we have here in the Forerunner server, we had Semra for about a month to play around with him before he was released into global, and we were figuring out bugs. We were seeing stuff that was not there, and we were reporting them. It's just that they rushed the release, and then those bugs were exemplified even more in global because more people are playing the content.
I was just gonna say, I think I don't mind them rushing it. I do think it's still been a giant net win because it timed out well with the anniversary. But I just wish, like, I feel like if they were in constant communication with like a group of 30 of you that they trusted from Forerunner and really foreran things, like everything should have at least like 6 to 8 weeks buffer. Every hero release, every content release, everything. Like what's going on with the farm has been a huge success, right? They really delayed it because it's not ready. Well, I'm saying the fact that it hasn't made it to global is a big success.
Yeah.
And that's
Everything I
one of the
understand about it that I've seen you do on Sebastian, that's how I've gotten my farm info. It looks terrible, or at least it did. It looked very
you did.
bad. So good thing it didn't make global. And yes, that should be the point of Forerunner. You guys are doing the dirty work in the farm. You guys are out in the fields. I mean, it's kind of a nice analogy there. I mean, that was done well. Why can't they treat everything like that? But I think they get excited. They get dollar signs in their eyes, right? And then this happens. I want to quickly just tell you guys. So I just went to look it up. So I had 2 big Lucius videos that came out talking about, oh my God, he's really not working. And the second one of those 2, my third Lucius video ever, I think it came out on, let me get the date for you, July the 6th. So we're talking over a month now, a month and 11 days. And that's the one where, and I feel like people are missing this. It's not just Lucius and that the buffs came back. This is the one where I proved even when all the buffs were gone, it was the same, right? So like all the damage was still the same, all the number of falling rocks was still the same. So that is, people tried to say, oh, but he's still taking more damage, so they got rid of the reductions. That's like 1/3 of the stuff. I mean, it's such a plain and obvious bug. Something like that just should never, ever, ever make it to global. So even if you wanted the buffs to come back, which I think a lot of us started to accept, I did not envision this fix coming. Then they did fix this. They fixed this in about 2 or 3 days, which was great. But that's just such a bug. It's like there's no other way to interpret it. There's no white knighting for Moonton on that. It was a clean, obvious bad bug.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we that video came out, I think, about 2 hours before we went live with Mike. So that was it was really interesting to see sort of that you'd done that research, and it was very much appreciated by the community that you and War Guides and whoever else had done sort of that testing had shown that there was a real issue there. So it was definitely there are problems with this. And another, to talk about another example of this lack of testing is Ingrid, and the fact that she can be used in every single mode of Arena, and she can be absolutely devastating. So just let me just dive into my Arena mix. And okay, I'm currently in the mix of the 500k IOVARs, but the overall the hero rankings is for anti-air Ingrid. She's a magic dealer, and you don't expect that many magic dealers to be that high in an anti-air arena. Especially when she gets to A3, she's absolutely devastating.
Yeah, I mean, the whole anti-air thing is just silly. I talked about in my Ingrid video, which I guess is a little my fault. Maybe like I went to be too provocative with my thumbnail and my title. I never used the word nerf or anything, but everyone thought I was saying to nerf Ingrid. I sincerely think you should not nerf Ingrid. I think nothing could be worse for the game than nerfing a hero that, like, I know personally people who spent like over $10,000. Like, come on, you cannot nerf that. But what you can do is change the maps. And I don't know why they don't do that. This is a huge advantage and leg up this game has over every other true hero builder, hero collector in the genre, is that we're the only tower defense one, right? You've got like an Arknights, but it's not a hero builder. It's just a collector and a puzzle game. We're the only one, and they could constantly, it's already bad PvP, but it could be at least very fresh bad PvP, which to me would be average PvP. If they constantly change maps, they could add did you guys do the demonic crusade? I finally did the challenge stages for that on my Epic account. I still haven't done my main. What a fun puzzle, having the floor is lava AoE damage over time, having the exploding barrels. You could fit that into Arena. Like, there's so many ways. You add like an electric fence, and like you need this kind of, it needs only a defender with damage based off of defense can break it down. Like, think of all the things. Like, that's just like, I just made that up. Like, if they sat down, they can make up 50 things. That would be even cooler, right? Like, this genre has so much potential, and they're using, like, I'd say 2% of it. It's crazy to me.
Yeah, I was really hoping before when they showed the Demonic Crusade and we had the multipath thing and the traps, that we'd start to see that in Guild Wars. Now, obviously, we've had the rework of the mini towers, which is really good, and it's really mixed things up. Okay, we're now running into issues of we've got powerful heroes, but we know that more powerful demons are going to come, and they're going to balance it. They'll find a way to balance it. They'll find a team shielding captain who nullifies all incoming damage for a period of time, just so that people can swarm past and then whatever. They'll come up with something, but we're just at that cusp where it's just painful for everybody until we work out a strategy to get past her.
Yeah, I'll say, let's give them their flowers. Like, at least they got on the Guild Wars thing within 4 months of global release, 5 months. I mean, very early. Raid just added it now towards the end of year 6, right? From what I understand, not going so great. I'm not too in tune with other games, but it does feel early. They are trying. If the game can survive another year, 2, 3 years, maybe it will be a beautiful thing, and it will be what I want. Every week we have a new rotation, and there's 9 rotations, and you've got to be ready for all of them. And by the time the 9 rotation cycle finishes, you're like, oh wow, it's coming back. That's cool. Like, same thing how I feel about Codex. Like, I think they've done a great job with Codex. Even the ones I hate, like Furious Torrent, that I just think are kind of clunky. It's still, we've got 6 now, I believe. And imagine if that is 12. So and they're only doing 3 at a time. So they're on like a 4-month cycle. I mean, then eventually it's 21, or there's a featured one every 3rd month that's brand new. I mean, you can see how once the game is out of its infancy, it could be really cool, right? So if they could apply that kind of thinking to Guild Wars, because basically for me in Guild Wars, right, I'm in a good guild. Most of us, I would say, are BP like 5 to 8 million. So we're good, but we're not making the tops at all. I don't know, maybe we're somewhere between 50 and 100, I think, or 80 and 100. So we're not bad enough that I just destroy everyone, but we're not good enough that I just get destroyed by everyone. What it is, I mean, it's changed a little bit with the new maps, but at least to speak to the old maps, it's incredibly boring content for an account like mine, because every team is I will destroy them or they will destroy me. And it's usually, do we get matched with a really high BP guild or really low? Occasionally, I find that perfect match and I can use my brain a bit. But because we were looking at the same maps forever with, again, no puzzle conditions, no obstacles, it just felt really boring. However, all that would change for me if they would cycle in some new stuff every couple weeks, just to keep it fresh. Why not? Guild Wars this week, you can't use arbiters or something, or you can't use magic damage. Like, it could be that basic to start. And then it's like only lizards are allowed. You know what I mean? Or lizards get 300% damage boost. You can just see, and then it's like, wow, I got to figure this out in a week. We've got a real fun thing to do here. Like, there's no reason in anti-air arena they couldn't do like, oh, you can't use watchers this week, or oh, you can't use magic DPS this. Like, just it could be that simple, or something they used to do in a game I played, Eternal Evolution. Not with PvP, or maybe there was like their version of like a tournament PvP they would have, these little seasonal things. It would be like, these heroes have boosted stats, So it's like, yeah, maybe Nyx isn't as good an option for Guild Wars as, I mean, I guess Nyx is a bad example. Let's say maybe Razak isn't, but hey, Razak with 180% boosted stats,
Might be good, yeah.
It'd be cool, right?
So yeah, I mean, you're getting into part of our wish list kind of episodes as well. So, but I didn't want it to get too far away from the primary topic. But the thing is that I was going to say regarding what you just said about things to bring in and exciting stuff to come in, we can then now. One of the things that I'm afraid of and how they're going to introduce this, because I don't want it to be a copy of the current format, is like real-time arena. So one of the things was, okay, give it to us in Forerunners. Let us test it out for 2-3 months. And like you said, maybe you can add different spawn points, or you can add boons to make sure that some heroes get a little bit of a buff or a debuff, and it's not dominated by heroes that are currently dominating the arena as it stands right now. So when I was telling Arcturus, as we were making kind of the overall topic of or trying to come up with ideas of what can be tested before it's released, this is the kind of stuff that I think they should take advantage of us, like you said, content creators in the test server or players in Forerunners, to test this stuff before they push it, and not make it mundane as some of the stuff is currently. Like you said, in GBG, you kind of have to find a balance. And I can tell you right now, Fastidious, that right now in the Overlord ranks, the top, I would say 10 guilds that are facing each other all the time, right now it's all about who has the most Ingrid towers.
Yeah.
If you have the most Ingrid towers, you're probably going to win. And so that's as it's changed to. So
But
all
even before, sorry, I was just gonna say, even
No.
before Ingrid, it was like this, right? Because it's like nothing changes for so long. There's a defined
Yeah,
meta. You go watch a Destin stream or a Blunt Guts video or Slate or whoever's doing guild versus guild content. There's a clearly defined meta that isn't that hard for the very, very top players to figure out. It trickles down, and that is the meta unless something randomly is discovered and maybe it slightly inches towards something else. However, there is no Blunt Guts video that saves 20 guilds if it's cycling every week. Like, there's only 48 hours to do your attacks. So it would solve that crazy problem. And then it's like, wow, this is skillful. Who can crack the code the fastest? Because you can't just go look for War Guides or Slate or something. You know what I mean? Notice I haven't said myself, because
but
you won't be finding it on my channel.
Part of the meta establishing so early on too is because friendlies are on during the battles. So you can kind of figure out all the stuff on the fly. You don't have to, boil it or slowly cook it. It's all boom, instant. And if you're in the top guilds, you have the heroes, you're going to figure it out a lot sooner. So there are some things here that they really do need to change as it stands right now with some of the content. But in the future, that's the future stuff that we have to keep in mind a little bit more of how you're going to roll it out, introduce it, and in fact, you use something like Forerunners to test the stuff off before they release it. The thing with the heroes, it's annoying how this constantly changing of the kits Arturos and I are still puzzled by the Boreas thing because Boreas was in Forerunners for such a while. They're gonna introduce him to Global. They changed his kit right away. Forerunners knew he was busted good, and came into Global, and the whole ordeal happened. And now, like you said, we cannot have another Boreas situation with Ingrid. That cat's out of the bag. You cannot. There's no way to get it back in, especially for those that spend a lot to get her to A3.
Yeah, for sure. I can't agree more. I think the last thing to talk about, since we're just so focused on Guild Wars right now, which is funny because it's the thing I probably care the least about. Um, like if they could just work, maybe just because we don't have so many guilds in certain ranges, but I just feel like the matchmaking is such a mess at the start of every season, and then it just kind of kills it already. Like I just did my Guild Wars. Like I don't even remember to do it every matchup. Like many people do know that. But I did do it on Wednesday, and it was towards the end, and it was very fun. Even though I didn't have fun, it was still very engaging. I guess that's the word,
Engaging.
because
Right.
it was 53% to 52%. So it was like they needed me, and I was like, because normally I know it sounds bad that I miss. I never need to go either. I don't get my I never attack till the second day usually because it's too easy on the first day. I usually get my butt kicked on the second day, but like and then the other thing is usually they just win on the first day. Like very often I can't even go because they just win on the first day. Or we get completely shellacked, like destroyed, and it's
Yeah.
80-15 and it's over, right? But this was interesting because it was 50, I think it was 53 to 52% remaining, which is cool. Like, and if it was like even within 20 more often, I would feel more motivated and would feel more often that if I skipped it, I would let the team down. But it's very rare that I was like, oh, we could have, like, I don't even know ever if I've missed one and felt like that could have made any difference because it's never close. Have you guys thought about that at all, or you think how could that be fixed?
Yeah, I mean, I've just pulled up the current leaderboards on Forerunners, and I imagine it's pretty much the same on Global with Madge well out in front. But even when they normalise the scores at the end of end of the season, the top team is so far ahead that by week 6 they could pretty much rest on their laurels and do nothing, and they would still win. And that's a problem. Now, there was a patch on Forerunners about 2 weeks ago where they were talking about adjusting the amount of points that were lost if your guild was wiped, and we were debating whether that meant that you had lost more points or you lost fewer points. And I'm kind of hoping that you lose fewer points, because then that gives you're not dropping as far, and it might balance out the teams a bit better, and those that were constantly winning maybe are pushing ahead. It just kind of generates some more layers than there are at the moment, because it's at the moment it's a mess, and the
You know,
matchmaking is
based on what we're seeing though right now, Arturos, I think is what you're thinking is that you don't get penalized as much because now we have seen the same opponent 3 times in 3 weeks.
yeah.
So I think that that's what it is that you're not being penalized as much, or you're not going to drop down that much. So you're not going to have the thing like Fastidious described, where his guild matched against somebody that is just so high overpowered, and they may have had a tough week and lost twice, and they just dropped down too much.
I would say for
And
my guild, I'm looking up our
so,
ranking right now, like very consistently. I'm pulling the game open so I can get you actually
mm,
numbers, but I think we're somewhere in like 80 to 100 or 70 to 100, and very
okay,
consistently, our 2 fights a week. One of them we destroy the other team, like I don't get a fight, like we're already done, or the other
okay,
one is like we lose when it's like 80 to 10, or
okay.
60 to 10, like, and it really feels like that every week. I want to see what this one is. So for me, maybe this is just me, but like I would keep fighting the same guild if it was close every time, like that's to me, that's more interesting. And I would think the way they should design it is it's all about reaching Overlord. I feel like that's the real. Sure, there's the people vying for the top, but I feel like the top anyway. If they want to give them more rewards, I wouldn't care at all. If they want to, if you're in the top 10, if it's like first place gets 20 ancients, and then it goes all the way down to like a bonus 2 at 10, and it's like I wouldn't, personally, I wouldn't care about that at all if that motivates them. But I feel like the big way they could add a lot of health to it is just really focus on that fight for Overlord. Whereas right now, it's just this kind of meta, boring grind from everyone I've described that's pushed it. I've had a couple friends leave their guild to go to an Overlord push guild just to
Yeah.
get an avatar car or get the glory, and then they go back.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So here we are right now. So like I haven't fought yet. This isn't that bad, but there's no way we're gonna lose. So it's 73 to 51. So it's close, but we have so many attacks left. It's already done, you know. So it's like it's really hard to say. Like we're even on attacks. They're not making up 21%. So like I'll do my fights, especially since I'm talking about it right now in the video. That'd be embarrassing if I don't. But like I don't really care to, and it doesn't matter. It's how I look at it. Maybe it's the bad mentality, but for content that I'm not so in love with anyway, to when it feels like it doesn't matter most of the time because the fights aren't that even. I don't know.
Okay. No, I was just going to close this out. We're seeing changes in matchmaking here in Forerunners right now, especially after they released the patch where they said that they were going to adjust how many points you get deranked for losing. So I think eventually maybe those oversighted matches may get fixed in global. It's just going to take a while because the point system has to rebalance again based on how many victories or losses each one of those guilds takes. But in terms of going back kind of to the primary topic of development quality control, I don't know if Fastidious, if you heard, one of the things that we had here in Forerunners is that they changed the cost regeneration system a little bit. They're giving us 10% more. So that it kind of changes a little bit of the aspect of how we can tackle geared dungeons. But one of the things that I was talking to Arturus about is that it was one of those, okay, so did they have to change this because of how they constructed gear dungeons, for example, and given those timings so strict? Or is it that they're giving us a little bit of wiggle room now because of the future content that is coming into the game? So I was thinking is when they release gear dungeons, they might have had an idea of how things were going, but I think that they may have seen that it became so hero and timing specific that this was their way to adjust things. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that type of content being released and then how they're trying now to fix it to make sure that more heroes are coming into play.
Can you rephrase exactly? So how's that different than the cycling buffs and the cycling maps thing? Are you, what how exactly do you mean?
So we had here they adjusted the cost regeneration of the game, so you get 10% more cost regen during the battle. So
really?
You're getting more cost.
That's on Forerunner.
Yes, in Forerunners, that's
Okay.
what's one of the. So
I don't know all the Forerunner updates.
That's what I was trying to keep you, because this is part of the quality.
Okay, I gotta know. I don't know why. I mean, I'm just being an idiot. Maybe I thought you were talking still about in Guild Wars the cost generation.
No. I'm trying to go past Guild Wars because the quality control there, I think, is going to become
I'm
more apparent.
I'm very excited to move away from Guild Wars. So they're increasing. So you're gonna get. So for every 10, what used to be 10 costs will be 11 now. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, that's pretty much how you can calculate. Every 9 now is 10. Is how you can calculate.
Gear 2 will be much easier, I think.
That's what I was going to. So it was one of those. Because one of the things that we had Arturus and I talked about is maybe the timings there are so strict that they needed to give us a little bit more. And in the early game, GR3. The timings have to be just right for you to beat it the first time, right? So is it because they're trying to alleviate that content a little bit more to bring more heroes in? Or is it that they needed to start planning ahead for future content where things maybe even get tighter?
I hope it's for future content. I don't think it's too tight. I mean, we all get it done eventually. I honestly, to me, it's weird enough. It kind of feels like a nerf to like Dallin, Narvi, and Cyrene, doesn't it? Like it just makes what they do slightly less valuable.
Or relieve the pressure from having Elo in your account was the other thing that because I know that there were a lot of videos that ran across my feed where people felt like if you need to beat this content, you need Elo in.
For sure, yeah. That's a video I've wanted to film for a while. It's a collab I've talked to Jake Smash about, but I haven't motivated myself to do it because like, what's there to say? It's like, yeah, it's ridiculous. Like that'd be the whole video. It'd be like 12 minutes of me going, yeah, it's stupid. Like it's ridiculous. I would say with Ellen, yes, she is also a cost generator. I just realized I didn't even mention that in my should you summon for her. It's crazy. That's a very underrated thing I realized about A5 Elwyn. It's like constant cost regeneration whenever you need it.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know if they're exactly the same thing. I mean, the cost boost, if the game gets a little easier, the game gets a little easier. You're always gonna have I mean, I get a lot of comments on my videos, at least relative for the space, and I could really see, like, there's a lot of people that are just like, yay, I like the game, or yay, I'm frustrated with the game, but it's like in the middle. And then there's a lot of people that like, this game's way too easy, there's no end game, it sucks so much, and it's all your fault. Or this game is way too hard, it's such BS, you only use God gear, and this game's stupid and you cheated, right? It's like these polls are crazy. And I guess this will, in one way, help one of those ends and hurt the other one. I don't know. I can't think of a piece of content where you can't solve it in a fairly free-to-play way early on. Early on meaning beating your 19s or something, just by grinding a little harder, getting a rapidity set going. I mean, I don't see the need for this, but I also don't think this is game-breaking, right? If you're talking over a full minute, you get I don't know if cost was a cost a second.
It's 6 over a minute. Yeah, it's about 1 a second. But
it's about 1 a second. So you're talking 6 more costs. I mean, you can almost get a halder out or something. I mean, it's okay.
I think I personally think it's to do with an acknowledgement of some of the heroes who've come out recently who are really expensive. So you've got the Arbiters, who are generally over 20. You've got Honora, who's 22. You've got Dahlia, who's 22. So you've got these expensive heroes who they just released into the game, and like, oh, well, we want people to make use of them, but people are saying they're too expensive to get out. So this might be their kind of like acknowledgement of that and trying to make it easier. So
yeah, I can hear that. Yeah, it's something like with Honora makes literally no sense. With or Korea at 21 is lunacy. With the Arbiters, I kind of like it. It's like, all right, you want to use the best thing, it's going to cost you. Like there's a trade-off.
Yeah.
And granted, Cyrene or Dallin can solve a lot of those problems and a lot of things, but I don't know. I mean, this is not a kind of change. I'm not going to make a video praising it or criticizing it. It sounds fine. Sounds fair enough. I don't think it will be game breaking or game ruining.
Well, I can tell you that Arcturus and I do give props to them when they think they're doing something good, and we do kind of, criticize them a bit at times on some stuff that they do. Like last week, we had a, pretty good, I guess, discussion on adding a hero into an arena shop and how long it might take to actually acquire the hero. And then the hero maybe not being really good in arena to begin with, and might be more applicable in other areas of the game, but it just did not make sense to us as to why they're choosing to lock a hero like that. And I made a comparison.
Well, here's a good example, right? Like, if you were saying you're not going to jump to a conclusion with the destined leak or or anything, this is something like I did a podcast last week, and Zucani was on, and we talked about it, and I feel real sloppy thing to do, and it's going to alienate a lot of the player base, the way they're going about this Sanja thing being so supremely expensive. But I mean, until it's on global, I'm not going to complain about anything because it's not 100% real. Like maybe I think they are testing on 400 first. Like I'm sure there's been crazy backlash, all those calculations. I mean, you sent me a nice DM about Arcturus. I did some math on my own end. I mean, for a normal player, you're talking easily a year and a half, if not much more.
So, easily,
easily.
I mean, with 10 points per battle in Overlord, it's just not enough.
How many people are hanging out in Overlord, right? I mean, that's an underrated part of it too. It's like, unless you're going for Apex, you're not spending time in Overlord. Or at least I don't, or anyone I know. It's you hang out in Plat 3. It's pretty easy if you've got a well-developed account. And then if you choose to, at the end of the week, you pushed Overlord and you're there for a few hours, right? I guess this could change the way that operates, but I think it's just going to make everything harder, everything more toxic. But this is also not the kind of thing I'm going to actively make a video complaining about personally. I feel like I really have to choose my battles on when to give them big ups and when to give them big downs, because a lot of times there's working out the kinks or something, So like when they took our ancient summoning shards away, ancient summoning crystals away from the Brave Conquest, that I'm going to make a video about. For this, I think it's like, or here's a great example, right? The insignias. So many people in my DMs, I'd say at least 24 people personally thinking they needed to reach out to me to tell me I need to make a video about it. And I'm like, first off, it helps you in the early game, no question. I'm in the early game right now on my Epic account. This is before I started my Epic account. It does help you in the early game. More extracts is great. Getting multiple different rarities is great. The trade-off was worth it. And sure, it hurts you in the end game, but I did the math, and you're talking maximum like 200 diamonds of penalty a month if you've got a well-developed account and you're buying out the market all the time. And what happened anyway? They buffed it. So
they did.
No video needed. So
no. Yeah.
Will that update ever come? Back to the start of this video, this podcast? Who knows?
And I agree with you, because Arcturus and I were saying that those coins may become available somewhere else. There might be some big event, or real-time arena might be another source of it, so that cuts down the time. Or they may show up in Brave of Conquest, for example. I wasn't completely saying, no, it's going to take 16 months to get the hero. It was more of tying it behind that wall and not revising the content, because they really don't care to revise it. And so that was my biggest disagreement with it, is that instead of fixing the content, make it more playable, they just said instead of making the content better so people play it, they're just forcing you to play it by giving a reward. That was my major gripe with how they went and approached it.
Well, that for sure. I mean, the silliness of it is like, what could she be that makes it worth it? For someone that's getting that many coins, you've been playing for so long, or it doesn't take you that long, only a nice several months, but you're dominating Apex Overlord. So you're already a percentile of a percentile quality account, right? So I'm just trying to think. Like, I guess she would have to be like God in Guild Wars. It's the only thing I can think of.
Oh, she can hit anywhere on the map. She's like Idril plus.
Yeah, I know her kit well.
She does bonus damage once they're out the ring. So
I would say
she's going to be pretty devastating.
Yeah, but like, you can't do a hero like that and like, and she's so good in Gear Raid 3. It's like, who cares, right?
You already cleared it.
To be for something very competitive, like a Codex tournament kind of thing, they could adapt, or like very high level Guild Wars. Otherwise, it's like, I don't care if I have. Like, I mean, if you can get her, your account's probably good enough that you don't need her, unless I guess Guild Wars. It'll be interesting. Guild Wars actually probably makes sense as the best thing, because she can only mark so many targets. But there's only so many targets in Guild Wars. So if you think of something like a Furious Torrent, or a Gear Raid 3, or even a Gear Raid 5, Guild Dungeon 2, it's not so exciting. But yeah, if she in Guild Wars, say for some dog hounds or something, usually you're only up against 5 targets. It could be really good. Yeah, she looks really cool.
Well, as it comes down to the primary topic here of quality control, the only thing I have to add is that I hope that they take in any future content, they take an example of what they did with the camp feature that they rolled out, and that they allowed us to toy around with it, and we told them, here's what's working, here's what's not, that they saw that they were slowing down the game, and then eventually retooled it, and now they made it a lot better, and there are better rewards in it. So is there anything else that you want to add, Fastidious, in regards to quality control, making sure that heroes that are coming into the game are not busted, or any bugs that may come with the content that they rush out?
Yeah, I mean, it's all on the same umbrella, right? But like, I think they should never release a mechanic or a content that requires a mechanic unless that mechanic exists in multiple places. This is the new hill I'm going to die on. I'm calling them baby heroes. But like, you should be able to comfortably, assuming you've got the best gear, the best strat, and you're well prepped with enough meta units, there should be a solution to do Gear Raid 5, Gear Dungeon 2 without Elwyn. That isn't like super hacky. And you can do it, but it's like super hacky. You need like a Carnelian, or you're going to need some absolute craziness with like a Pharisee Hollow combo, and then every other unit's perfectly meta. I really despise stuff like that. We need like a baby Elwyn kind of hero, like another healer, maybe give him like a Pharisee Vortex range, make him worse, but then give him some kind of summon healer thing, you know? Like, you need, if you're going to introduce a Gear Raid 4 Guild Dungeon, Gear Raid 1, Guild Dungeon 1, I can't freaking talk. Gear Dungeon 1, I'm just calling Gear Raid 4, you know what I'm talking about. How can you do that without an epic anti-healer? How do we not have a single epic anti-healer in this game? You know, if you're going to release Lucius, same banner, put an epic dispeller on it. Like, I just think, or within a month. Like, I don't know why we don't, like, this is something a game like Raid does so much better. It's like, yes, they've had longer for the game to exist, but I played the game pretty early on, like in its second year. And already you had so many more epics than legendaries. And because of that, yes, do you have an epic? Do I want an epic that's like Elowen and that can do 5 things incredibly well? No. But do I want one that can do like 2 or 3 of them, and then you can pair them with something else? And now, yes, your comps become less meta, but there is a solution for sure. And in a game like a tower defense based game where it's all about puzzle pieces and putting it together, the fact that so many of the latest puzzles require very, 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 very specific pieces is really annoying. Like Epilogue, Void of Epilogue to me was a huge disaster. Like it was not exciting content at all. Like, I get a lot of negative comments on my Soleil boss guide, which I think was the most straightforward guide I could have made. I was very proud of it, but it's like, yeah, dude, you need a ton of DPS. Like, that's how you beat it. That's the guide. I talked about substitution heroes, but it's not like, hey, can a Nai work? No. Like it can't. So then we needed a way that there was a not straight nuking strat, but that's all it is, because they make it 3 waves that are very tightly timed. It's like, can you get it down fast enough? And they're each boss is like that. Stage 2, stage 6, and stage 4. I don't know why I went out of order there. But like stage 6 for me right now, I can't afford to bring my Estrid, so I can't get a defense break on the Valderon boss. Or I guess that one's not the Valderon boss. Excuse me. That's the.
It's the.
Who is that boss? It's the cyclone boss. Cyclone guy. I can't get the break on that, and I don't have Torador, so it's tough titties, right? Like. To get that, and even then I can probably nearly get there. I'm getting like halfway the last time I tried, but that's, yes, I have to bring Wrath and I have to bring like a Solda or King Hearts, but the only reason I'm getting close at all is because I also have Valeria and Ardia, who are like basically required, and certainly required if you don't have the other stuff. So it's just like, you're talking about, hey, you can get this done, and the entire hero pool on your 10-man roster is limited to 16 heroes that can work, Yeah. It's like you have to have at least 6 of them, and then pick another. I mean, what are we talking? It's that would be the balance I would want. Before they release anything, have beaten it with 2 different teams or something. Have like before you release a Gear Dungeon 2, have a version that you did it with Hex and Elowen and Hotsit or some combination of that, and then 3 others, and it can be any. You can mix and match a bit. But right now, it's just like. If you want to beat Gear Raid 5 and you don't have Elowen and Hotsit, it's best of luck to you. Can it be done? Sure. But the ways it gets done is even crazier. It's like, well, use your.
I mean, without Ardia and pushback, it comes Gear Dungeon 2 just becomes so ridiculously hard, especially on that bottom line. And then, you need the amount of chopping and changing you need to do around the damage incoming. It's really, really difficult. So that's where someone like Furzy comes in, because you need to have that damage mitigation on those people on the bottom line, so you could just focus on healing the ones at the top.
I mean, you can make concessions in each part, right? Like you can do an Estrid strat on the bottom, a Volca strat on the bottom. You can use, instead of Hotsit, you could get like a Nyx or a Yovar going. Instead of Ellen, you could do double healer. But every time you make one of those concessions, you're losing out on something else. So you can really, in the vast, vast, vast majority of like alternative comps, you can only make a singular concession, which means you're still required to have 3 or 4 of the other extremely rare OP units. So that's what I would like to see. Just we need to flesh out this hero pool. I'm working on the V2.1 of my website that's going to have like advanced sorting and advanced search by buff and debuff and specific dots and any like little specific thing in a kit for people to search by. And there's going to be some where like if you search Dispel, it will just be Lucius, and that should be unacceptable. If you should do like ranged, like out of range healing, it's going to be Ezreal and Elowen, and Ezreal's can't work for any real content for a Gear Raid 5 kind of thing. Summoner healer, if that was a tag we apply, it will just be like they just need I need less Numera and more like 6 new epics, But epics with intention, not just an Esme who has poison with an insta nerf poison, not just a Kalina that has a near unusable true damage. Make it a usable true damage.
I think that's a topic for another day, and I think we really need to draw a line under this so that Sebastian doesn't get killed by his family. But I think thank you very much, Fastidious, for joining us. It's been a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me. I think it's really cool. You did reach out to me a few months ago and mention it, and I don't know if I told you I missed it or it just slipped my mind. But then I had made a couple episodes of my own podcast, and you're like, "Hey, remember this one?" And I was like, "Oh my God, let's do it!" So I'm glad you hit me back up. I've known you, Arcturus, for almost the whole time I've been playing the game, so it's really cool, and it's been nice getting to know you recently, Sebastian. So keep up the great work.
Same, Fastidious. Thank you very much. So,
and I'll tell you, I want to say this at the beginning, but the title made no sense to me. But when you say it out loud, it's really good. But reading it, I'm just like, WoRs? But then it sounds, then I get it. When you say it out loud, it's good.
That's it came. I don't know what inspired it, but it was just one of those things that we typed up, and it just made sense, and we went with it. So, especially how we wanted to construct the podcast. So, again, thank you very much, Fastidious, for joining us. If you're watching this, make sure that you do hit like and subscribe on his channel. Go over there. Arcturus will make sure that it's in the description of the video, along with my channel, and make sure that you subscribe to Arcturus for getting notified for future episodes. And as always, if you have any input, please post them down in the comments. Arcturus will keep an eye on those. And as always, you could influence maybe the next topic of the next episode. Thank you all very much for tuning in and watching. And as Fastidious would say, tell your mother. We'll see you all next week.
Thank you, guys.